I wrote my new book, The Art of Caring Leadership, to be both a wake-up call and an invitation for leaders who want to uplift their teams and organizations by putting their people first. Most of us think we care, but caring leadership is about doing, taking action in a way that makes a tangible difference to our teams and our workplaces. Now, more than ever, at any time in history, we need to know what leading with heart actually means for us, for our workplaces, and for the world. The Art of Caring Leadership is a practical guide that will help you decipher what caring leadership means in practice through a framework that uncovers the steps you can take every single day. If your people know you care, not just about what they do, but who they are and can become, they will move mountains. To pre-order your copy of the book, visit theartofcaringleadership.com. On this episode of the Leadership at Heart podcast, you'll hear my conversation with Nick Mehta, CEO of Gainsight, a customer success software system, and they really are amazing. He is a tremendous CEO. I've watched him from afar for years. And on this conversation in this episode, you hear us talk about this idea of being both humble and also wanting to pursue greatness inside the role as a leader. You'll hear just how accessible he is as a leader to those around him and how he adds fun to the workplace. So just listen and enjoy to my conversation with Nick Mehta. Have fun. Hello, everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And I want to take a deep breath. I'm so excited to have our guest on today, Nick Mehta. He and I met him. It's really, I haven't formally met him in person. So this is the thing about LinkedIn. It's like this, we're in the same universe. We're in the same space. But many years ago, I don't know how many, maybe 10, I don't remember exactly. I was working at an organization running customer experience, customer success. And somehow I got connected to one of his, I think it was a chief customer officer. I don't know if he still is. And then I started to get kind of like emails and I was like, oh my gosh, this company, I mean, they just have so much going on for them. I have never had a platform make me want to drool to work with them. And that's how I felt like when I was there. And I just, the alignment, the value alignment was there. And then I would see Nick on social and just see all of the stuff he was involved in. I thought, wow, there's so much alignment with what they do on the front end and what their CEO talks about and how he represents himself. And so that is why you're here.
Great to be here, Heather. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Love kind of the spirit you're bringing to the world.
Thank you. So, okay, where are you right now in your leadership journey?
Oh, well, I'm in Palo Alto, California, geographically. But where am I in my journey? I would say that our one of our values at Gainsight is Shoshin, which means beginner's mind. And so I would say I'm a beginner, and always will be a beginner. But I've learned over time, like more about myself. So the thing I feel like I can always learn more how to be a better leader from other people. But I feel like over 43 years, I've gotten to know myself a little better, which definitely helps.
I cannot believe you're that much younger than I am, and you are doing so well, it's so impressive. But again, you deserve it. It's so well deserved. I'm just thankful for you and so proud of all the work you guys are doing and the advancements that are happening there too. So it's super exciting. Okay, it's weird that I say that when I have not even worked with the company, right? Isn't that weird that I say that? But it's true.
Oh no, flattery get you everywhere here. So thank you.
The people that listen to me know it's from the heart. So it is real, for sure. Okay, I'm curious to know, for those who report to you there at Gainsight, what do they say about your leadership style? How do you show up?
It's funny that I can actually give a very factual answer. So last week, so we're recording this in February. Last week was February 4th was my 8-year anniversary at Gainsight. We call those Gainiversaries, using our silly internal lingo. And I actually honestly got probably the most incredible gift I've ever gotten in my working career, which is my assistant, my chief of staff, created a Slack channel with everyone on it but me. Like, we have about 700 and something people in Gainsight. And so all of them were on it. And then over the course of the week before the Gainiversary, each of them wrote something about, my leadership or a memory of me, or honestly, I was like reading it and crying and all that. And I was looking up, I was like, I think I have a good answer for Heather, because I'll read one of our teammates she said some, nice stuff about leadership, but she said, I'm genuine, humble, and goofy. So I don't know about the humble part, but I definitely am goofy. So that comes across. I think one of the things we talk about, Heather, at Gainsight is this idea of human first business. That's kind of the aspiration we have. We don't just want to make software. We want to be living proof you can win in business while being human first, and sort of bringing your true self to work every day, which sometimes is me dressed up in a nice blazer. And sometimes, like yesterday, I had a safari adventure outfit with the fake mustache on for our company kickoff. Right. And the couple weeks before, I had a unicorn onesie on, and it means sometimes making like a rap video about customer success, and, just really being like yourself. And one of our values at the company is childlike joy, bring the kid in you to work every day. And so I think that goofiness is just like literally just trying to be myself. I'm no different than everyone else. We all have a very short amount of time on this earth. And I'm just more privileged than most people, but have the similar aspirations and desires. And so I think trying to break that wall between who we are as sort of employees and actually make it who we are as human beings. That's our style.
And I know that to be true, which is exactly why I kept trying to kind of stalk you to get on the show. So I'm glad we waited this long and you're here, but that's exactly true. I mean, it's not always, which is why either people refer to me or I seek people out, I see them. It's not always that the CEO of the organization really embodies all of the values that are there, and that all of the culture does. And like I said, all of the things and all of your messages and all, they are fully aligned, that they are real. So there's a real authenticity to the brand and to you as a CEO. And you rarely see that in leadership and leaders, executive leaders, especially, because there's usually this disconnect that happens between the front line, the folks that are driving the business forward, and then the C-suite who are kind of in their ivory tower, whatever's happening. And I don't find that to be true on your end. So thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. That had to have been an amazing experience. Oh, you're probably exhausted by the end of the day. Because
I wish everyone could get that. Somewhere like one day somebody everyone in their life tells them, it's a little bit like, what you imagine what happens at your funeral, but you don't get to see that. So it's like, okay, well, I got to see that before I die. So
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm curious to know, where does your drive to lead come from? Like, where did it start at? What was it?
Absolutely. There's and I've definitely thought about this a lot. And I think there's 3 different levels of where my personal passion comes from, what I've learned about myself. One of them is actually that I just love what I do. Like literally the day-to-day, doing this podcast with you, meeting a customer, talking to an employee. Like I love the craft, there's people who love doing woodwork or sailing, or I just love doing this. Somehow I love doing Zoom meetings, right? Like there's something wrong with me. But I actually like doing it. So that's number 1. Number 2 is I am like a lot of people, I would self-admit that I am like obsessed with trying to be successful and achieve. And a lot of that goes back to my parents and childhood and upbringing. And I'm Indian American and my parents are emigrated from India and they're amazing. But, definitely if you had a stereotype of immigrant parents, mine would fit pretty well, where it was kind of like, every text from my mom is about what somebody else is achieving, and what they literally today, she texted me and said that somebody from my class at my college is on NBC. She's actually Kristen Welker, who moderated the debates and did an amazing job. Good job of moderating debates that we all saw last fall. And so my mom will text me about every successful person in my orbit. And so the second thing is trying to be successful. And there's a personality test called Enneagram. I don't know if are you familiar with Enneagram?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm like a 3, and I'm very, very aware, self-aware. 3 basically is you define yourself based on your achievement. There's a funny story where some people have heard this, but if you haven't, I was taking my parents to dinner. This is when I was about 40, so 3 years ago. And we were driving out to dinner, and my mom's in the passenger seat, my dad's in the back seat. And my mom knows that outside of work, I really love science. Actually, Heather sees that right behind me is a photo of Albert Einstein. So I love science. I read a lot of science, and probably there's some alternate universe where I went into something science related. And my mom says, she's like, it's so great that you read science, because she's really into science. It's too bad you didn't go into science, because you could have really done something with your life. And my dad, he jumps in and he thinks he's trying to help. He says, no, Mina, he's only 40 years old. He still has time to do something with his life. And my mom says, no, he's too old, but his kids can do something. And so my mom's now, luckily, she's very focused on our kids and poor kids and whatever they're going to accomplish. But so the second thing is definitely I have that drive to achieve and accomplish. And I'm just like a lot of us with the FOMO and the reading the headlines about other people on the list of 40 people under 40 or 50 people under 50 or who's on the list of this billionaires or whatever, Bitcoin. And it's just like overwhelming how much stuff is like thrown at you in the universe about how much you're not achieving and how much you're not, no matter what you've achieved. So that's the second thing is I kind of, the thing that's good about this one is like, eventually you kind of like know yourself and ideally you can kind of laugh at yourself a little bit in a loving way. So in this way, I know it and I can laugh in a loving way. And then the third thing, which gets to the kind of human first is, I did find that like, gosh, like we're never going to be the biggest company in the world. We're not going to be Amazon. We're not going to be Tesla. We're not going to fly a car into space or whatever. It's never going to happen. So I've kind of accepted that. But we can be somewhat successful. But what we can do is actually like the way we run our company, like caring a lot about our values and our people and trying to be our authentic selves, right? That's a little bit too rare in business. I'm not saying it's completely rare. There are companies who do it, by the way. We're not the only ones at all. But we defined our purpose statement in our company is we want to be living proof you can win in business while being human first. We want to prove that it's possible that you can be win. Not saying we're going to be the ultimate all-time winner, because honestly, there's always somebody better, right? No matter who you are, right? But we can win enough, like that we feel successful and be our human selves and like actually genuinely care about our values and be goofy and whatever else. And I think there's a lot of people who kind of like were raised to believe that's not possible. Mm-hmm. That like the images and stereotypes of leaders, like the ones that are really successful are the jerks and the people that don't care about people. And, and by the way, whether those stereotypes are even true, that's what we were kind of led to believe. And so I think we all have it in our head that you can't just be yourself. That couldn't possibly be the right strategy. And we're hoping to be a small example where maybe it can work.
I love that. And I also love that idea of like being the best enough, like, reaching it at a certain level, but not having to have perfection at every turn because I think running into the abyss is how I look at it. It'd be running into the abyss if we're trying to be the best nonstop all the time, every category.
Exactly.
We would just hyperventilate. We would, turn gray in like 2 days. It just wouldn't work. So you do have to pick your space your place of excellence, right? Picking your place of excellence would be a big one.
Right. Yeah. Like I kind of, one of the things I believe in is, the concept of like polymath, where you can be really good at like mixing things together. Polymath is somebody who's good at multiple things, right? And so maybe I'll never be the best CEO in the world or the richest person in the world or the biggest company in the world. It's hard to see, there's so many of these things that feel unachievable. I'm sure many listening feel the same way. But you can be like, okay, in my little niche, think of it like a Venn diagram, right? Like software CEO who actually cares about people and is into pop culture and cares about diversity. And like you built, okay, in that little Venn diagram, I can be pretty good. There's like a level that you're like, okay, that in that little niche of the world, my little corner of the world, I can be pretty good. So
I love that. Well, I think, so thank you for that, because it gives all of us some perspective, again, knowing the kind of success you've had, but thinking about how do we level set, how do we ground ourselves in our own realities and still strive to be better and more for the organization, for ourselves. But at the same time, again, say, okay, what's good enough for where we're at and where's our place of excellence? I think that's really critical. Okay. So here's a time where, so everybody can hear that you're just wonderful. So they're all like, yay, Heather, you brought this amazing Nick on. And now we want to talk to you about a time, which is hard to do this, but a time when you weren't the best version of Nick. You weren't the leader that you were kind of going to be proud of. If you can share it in a specific story, and what did you do to come out of it? How did you evolve out of that place?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. So a lot of days. I mean, I don't think if you can have values, if you have values, you got to have times when you didn't live up to them and you learn from them, right? And so I think there's a lot of situations where I feel like I could have done better. There's one anecdote is in my last company. So I ran another company before this. And I remember, I don't think I understood myself nearly as well as I do now. And I remember we were in a meeting about some, release date for software, like, when is this thing going to come out? And it was like delayed. And I remember getting like really frustrated and upset in the meeting, which I, by the way, very rarely do ever. But I did. And I kind of like, I left the meeting and nobody felt great in that meeting. I left. And then like the person who ran the engineering team who worked for me kind of pulled me aside and said like, did you really intend to make people feel that way? Because like when you're a leader, like whatever you feel like is amplified on everyone else. And so if you feel great, it's going to bring people up. And if you feel, frustrated or whatever, it's going to really bring people down. And was that your intention? And I was like, that wasn't my intention. Like some people intentionally might be upset at the team because they want them to feel it or whatever. I was like, no, that wasn't what I was trying to do. And so that was kind of one thing, is like learning how important my emotions are and like how they make people feel, and being empathetic to that. That was like one big learning that I've really tried to practice over time. Another good example of something that I wish we'd done differently is there are a number of people over the time at Gainsight that have been incredible performers, but did not align to our values and sort of our human first purpose. And I think that I, especially in leadership, there's several times where I did not kind of have that conversation with the person, figure out if they can do it, and like if they couldn't, like help them go find their next thing. And it just becomes a drag on the organization, really does. And so that was the second thing that I'm not proud of, is like times when I should have made a decision quicker on somebody. A third example, we early in our company's history, we were kind of raising a round of funding, and we got, an offer from one investor, and we then got an offer from another investor that was probably a better fit for us, the second one. But I had made a verbal commitment to the first one, and then I kind of, basically backed off them. And I'm definitely not proud of that, because honestly, it's sort of like, we believe in golden rules. One of our values: treat people the way you want to be treated. I wouldn't have wanted that to happen. So that's something that I kind of definitely, felt bad for. I brought that other investor on as a sort of a smaller investor. And so we tried to make up for it. And eventually they became a bigger investor. So, but still, like, I kind of get to own what happens. And the last one I'd say, because I know you're passionate about this too, is in some ways I'm proud of like some of the things we've done in terms of our team's diversity, both globally, gender-wise, things like that. I think there's things we've done well. And so that's good. But some of those I wish we'd done much sooner. So that's one issue, is we wish we'd had, for example, we have a lot of women in leadership, but still not as much as we want. And I roughly probably 40% or so of leaders, depending on different levels, are women. Sometimes 35 at one level and 45 at another. But if you had an average, it's probably about 40. But I think we could do better. And I think if we'd done better in the beginning, and we'd be closer to 50. But then take an example that's not close to target. Like, we're way underrepresented in underrepresented minorities, Black, Latinx people. And like, it's again, if you do that, we actually in the last year have made good progress, but in terms of new hires. But when you have 700 people, your existing base is going to like be so skewed that like you add those small number of new hires and it still doesn't move the needle nearly enough. We're making progress, and I'm seeing like the virtuous cycle of like, oh gosh, like people are seeing people that they identify with, and then they feel more comfortable being themselves at work, and it's bringing a real positive energy. But wish we had done it much sooner. So that's something I wish we had done sooner. So I can give you 100 more, Heather. So, but those are 4 off the top of my head.
That's a lot of learning. This is what we talk about on this show a lot of times. It's just about everything being a journey. And I'm not pulling you into this to make you look like a bad guy. It's to show like, wow, like this guy's like really highly evolved, really, really enlightened, and he is not perfect. And neither am I. I always say, I write about this, I speak about this, I train on this, and I'm still not perfect. We all have a journey. I am on the journey.
Exactly right.
With you. And it's all of those mess ups, those things where you're like, that's what makes you are today. And it also is what makes you so valuable to your team members and to anybody around you. I mean, the reason why I highlight this idea of imperfection leaders is there is that thing you talked about earlier, where it's like the stereotype of a leader. And not only that the person's like, you could say, well, the stereotype is that they're a jerk. The stereotype is also that they don't make mistakes, that they're perfect, that they have this armor on them, that they're not vulnerable, that they're not, all those things. Right. And so we just have a CEO right now that just, admitted to crying at some Slack channel, right? You don't normally get that kind of stuff. Most folks aren't. And so I just want to continue to hammer in folks' head that it is a journey, that we're trying to get better. We're tweaking, we're adjusting every day, trying to get to that better self. And when you're listening to all the people that are on the show, you get just a different angle every time, and it allows you to adjust how you show up. Right?
So well said. Yeah. None of us are perfect. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
The question is no longer, is remote work here to stay? But rather, what does the future of remote work hold, and how can we best prepare for it? As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to take the world by storm, and employees continue to learn how best to work from home, keeping those employees engaged and productive has been an unprecedented challenge for leaders everywhere. At Employee Fanatics, we've been keeping our ears to the ground and intently listening to employees for months to discover what their needs are in this moment, and perhaps more importantly, how those needs will evolve in the coming months. Our new thought paper, Work from Home and Work from the Heart, Reimagining the Future of Remote Work and Employee Engagement, is the culmination of that careful listening process and will guide you and every leader within your organization to reimagine the ways in which you can use work from home processes to engage and empower every team member. To download your copy, visit employeefanatics.com today.
So for those who are listening right now who, could be at either crossroads in their leadership or just need a little extra oomph for the week or the month or the year, what might be a couple pearls of wisdom you'd leave them with?
Yeah, in terms of just like leadership in general. Yeah.
Whatever comes to your heart. Yeah, leadership in general. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's so funny because it's hard to distill these things down because they're so situational and nuanced, as you know, right? So it's like, I give you a general statement and it's like sounds like a platitude. I'll just share some things that like I was actually writing a blog post and some things I was thinking about for myself have been important. I think one of them that we've talked about, which is like really getting to know yourself. And that's why I actually personally think like coaching, therapy, personality tests, peer groups, right? I do all those things. And like I kind of like have a pretty good understanding of who I am. And I'm not trying to change that who I am. I am proud of it and I'm happy. And it's like it is just who I am. Like, I kind of feel like one of the things that's tricky is like, you can want to be somebody else, but like you are who you are. So you can't be somebody else. I care about human first and I'm way too obsessed with what other people are doing, whether I'm successful or not. And that's just true. It's not like a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a thing. So then I can be aware of it. So that's like one thing, personal development, like I said, therapy, personality tests, coaching, peer groups, all that kind of stuff. To me, that's so, you can never do enough of it. It's great for your leaders. It's great for your team. It's not just for you, right? It helps you show up better for your team. A second thing is, something I've been thinking about actually very recently, because I had that kind of 8 years at Gainsight. I do think that like, if you're a leader and you're working on something long-term, like you've been doing, Heather, with your initiative, right? I do think that there's an element where you have to find the joy in it yourself. Like you'll get accolades from other people and it's super kind and the Slack channel where people talked about stuff, but eventually like they're on their own journey. So they're on their own journey and eventually that journey will depart from yours, right? There'll be somebody from Gainsight, they'll leave Gainsight. People aren't gonna be here forever, right? And so over the course of 8 years, I've done a lot of the goodbye meetings, and those are really very important, but also it makes me realize that like, I have to love this on my own. I have to love myself on my own. Like I was totally listening to Whitney Houston, Greatest Love of All on my 8-year anniversary. Cause I'm like, it's just inside you. Like if you don't love yourself in this process, then I don't think it's going to work long-term because there's nobody else, right? You're on your own journey. It's a little lonely, but it's true. So, it's less lonely if you love yourself. The third thing I think is just from a professional standpoint, the incredible value of like helping people and maintaining relationships. I think a lot of people underestimate the value of that. And they treat things a little more transactionally. We all know people like that, where it's like, okay, they'll help me if they know they can get something out of it right now. And that becomes pretty transparent. And again, using golden rule, like I think just help people like anytime you can. Like, for example, every time somebody reaches out to me for career stuff, if I can, I try to talk to them. And by the way, it's not because I believe something's going to happen out of that and they're going to help me one day. Maybe they will. And many times it does come back. But honestly, like it's great. It feels so good to help people find a job, help people figure out how to fundraise. If you're privileged enough and fortunate enough to have had some success, help lots and lots of people as much as you can. And I squeeze the time in and help my teammates and help our customers find new jobs. And I've helped, if you look at our customer community, I've helped hundreds and hundreds of our customers find jobs and introduce them to people looking for a job or whatever. And if it helps our business, but honestly, it just makes me feel good. I love it. And so I think helping people, it sounds so obvious, but I think there's still not enough of it, not enough golden rule, a little bit too much focus on what have you done for me lately? So that's a third one I'd share.
So there's a couple things that pop in my mind on that. I was just doing a little bit of training on this with some folks the other day on influence. How do you expand your influence? And one of the things about how you expand your influence is to volunteer to help someone.
Exactly.
And when you're volunteering to help people, you expand it, because then when you have initiatives going forward, you don't do it like you said, Nick, you don't do it for that reason. But when you are someone who just automatically gives, when the time comes and you have an initiative, particularly if it's in the workplace and you're giving there, then you can go to them and they, you don't have to say, and I helped you. You don't have to say that, right? They just know, wow, this person is a giving person. I want to help this person too. So you expand your influence on any of those things. So
that's so awesome. That's awesome.
A real big one. And then the other thing I was thinking of, this is a little bit of a side note, but a very good friend of mine, her name is Melissa Hughes. And she she does neuro nuggets every week. And she is an Einstein freak like you.
Oh, wow.
She's written 2 books called Happy Hour with Einstein. And then the other one I think is called Happier with Einstein. And it's all about neuroscience. It's all about the stuff you were just talking about with like giving, kind of the dopamine boost and the different chemicals and all of that. So I would highly recommend you check out her books. If you love
That's
Einstein.
awesome.
She's an Einstein freak. So Melissa Hughes, Happy Hour with Einstein.
Just
that I put a plug in as I'm looking at that picture behind you, and she's got that stuff on her walls too.
I love that.
I love all of the stuff that you're giving everybody. For those who are listening right now, if you've been inspired by Nick, there's something that he said that you were just thinking, wow, that's a way for me to tweak. There's something for me to do. Please do share this episode far and wide. And also don't forget to write a review on Apple Podcasts. I'm going to say that every single time because it's important. The algorithm does need to see the reviews. And once they see that you're just validating the importance of the show. So I appreciate all of you. And Nick, thank you so much for joining. I mean, this has been amazing. It won't be the last time. I'm sure we'll be together on either here or LinkedIn Live or something, because I just have a huge amount of respect for you.
Oh, Heather, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
And thanks everybody for joining the Leadership with Heart podcast. Be well.